We talk about UAUs and conservative views. I'm your host today, Craig Lewis. I'm going to from Show 2026, live from the Green Strategic Mobile Studios. Today is Thursday.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Who's ready?
Star Punch Thursday, bitch.
Lots of fun stuff going on this week. Not really. What a dinner was almost like a family reunion. Except it's the greatest part of your family. What a good time. And, it's one of those things where you still make a couple of times. My experience at NRA, I make my policy, which is but, it's some time and group who actually believe in patriotism, even right to keep them in their arms. Anyway, everything yeah, I come here because they chance some cool stuff that I'll never get to own in California. That's why the stuff a lot of here they're also therapy accessories to give you there's all sorts of stuff to but I it's people that really make this event go. We're having a really, really good time. Lots of fun stuff. We want to go ahead and program, but we're going to start off with a shout out to our sponsor. We're going to start with the and insurance. They will flip the cover of the we've got California Republicans that work to help conservatives all of the government. People brought the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, once wanted to start as the conscience of the Republican Party. One should come today at the radio. He can find out why we need some because look, if you want to pick California's today, you got to join us. And then we got better and feel free to post the book market hog post.com post.com big American warehouse. They'll get money. They're going to give you a nice little discount. Use the discount code the rundown on capital space just like it is right there. And then finally we got group sales. That's right, talk about you come back here. Just get on over there, find out every each agency, get your group together, whatever it is, you find whatever you need over US Tom Gear. They all all right, get to today's story. We're going to start by talking about Greenland. I told you guys in this book, but I didn't really get why is President Winston about to the point where he's not willing to deny. No, he's willing to deny action. Never said he was going to Greenland. It's clear he never said he never to go to Greenland, but he didn't want to acquire Greenland. The left obviously lost his minds, and on the right are like, why would we want to do it? All that being said, turns out that all of the discussion, all of the remote was not for nothing. Because it turned out it was actually a little bit of a deal that has been struck when it comes to Greenland. And here's President Trump talking a little bit.
Every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand.
Well, Greenland, a big topic in Davos. Joining us now from Davos, Switzerland, is NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Mr. Secretary General, thanks. Welcome back to Special Report. You know, the president had his meeting.
Thank you for having me back on the show.
Sure. He had his meeting with you, the bilat meeting, and he came out of there and said, we have formed a framework of a deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the broader Arctic. What does that framework look like, sir?
Yes, but what we basically discussed, how can we implement the president's vision on protecting, yes, Greenland, but of course it is not only Greenland, it is the whole Arctic. And as you know, there are 8 countries in the Arctic, Russia, which obviously is not in NATO, and 7 other countries, including the United States and Canada, but also 5 countries in Europe who are in that Arctic region. How can we collectively make sure that we defend that Arctic region, therefore implementing his vision of that necessity? And he's totally right there, because we know that the region is opening up more and more. The sea lanes are opening up more and more for the Russians and the Chinese and other adversaries to be active there, which is potentially a threat.
You know, getting from point A to point B, though, seems like it may be a challenge. I did get a statement just before this interview from the Danish foreign minister. He said this: the day is ending on a better note than it began. We welcome that President Trump has ruled out taking Greenland by force and paused the trade war with Europe. Now let's sit down and find out how we can address the American security concerns in the Arctic while respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. I think it's the red lines that are...
Basically, what's happening, they're working at it. The whole point behind all of this was want to make sure that we had some sort of frame. Basically, the whole idea is Greenland, as we talked about before, is very important to our national security, to the security, frankly, of most of North America, the Western Hemisphere, North America, meaning Canada, as well as Mexico. Also the shipping lanes where Greenland are vitally important, and we're seeing a lot more activity by the Russians there. And in essence, what Trump is trying to do is bring attention to what is going on there in Greenland. He wants everybody to look at Greenland. He wants everybody to pay attention and realize that NATO, look, we have a responsibility to make sure, just like we as the U.S. have a responsibility to make sure that we're helping Europe. Europe has a responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of, right? That we're protected. And so what this does is it allows us, it happen now. Basically, England have found a way to make this all work out in a way that doesn't mean we don't have to own it, but we're going to have something present that this thing is going to be fixed soon. That President Donald Trump announced a new Greenland framework had been agreed upon with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. The NATO chief told Fox News, quotes a special report where the U.S. forcibly control of Greenland from Denmark is not discussed during a meeting between him and Trump in Switzerland during the World Economic Forum. That issue did not come up anymore in my conversations with the president. He's very much focused on what we need to do to make sure the huge Arctic region where change is taking place at the moment, where the Chinese and Russians are more and more active. How can we protect that? Rutte said we had on the detail of the report framework that had been agreed upon. Now, some of the things that are going to be included are going to be missile. We're going to have military bases there, as well as we're going to have an economic bases there. In other words, a lot of those vital minerals, mining, things like that, we know what we need, we are seeking in order to continue to be competitive economically in the world. We're going to be able to get them from there in Greenland. And that this is what he wants. This is what Trump wants all along. I believe that's what he wants. And I think when you reach far by it, you say that we want to hold on to stuff, and you say never had it. But what we're going to have now is the state of big part. And that was always an entity that, frankly, we provide almost all of the military support for. We're the ones that are out there defending. And it's largely to defend them over here. What about us? What about us here in the United States? We're part of this thing for a reason. Not just to job, but protect ourselves. This is a thing that we need. I just wish it didn't have to be something. I just wish it didn't have to be so darn. I don't know. The person saying sorry, Lord, you're saying that coming across kind of shaky and unintelligible. That is not a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and check my sound on this and make sure that. What's that? I have no idea what it is. All right, like we're going to go ahead and cut it off. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you for the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And I apologize about that little audio mix-up there. I didn't know what was going on. It just came across all shaky and whatnot, but it appears to be working just fine now. Anyway. We're coming at you, by the way, live from SHOT Show 2026 in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the Imperium Strategic Group studios. Wow. Okay. Anyway, I'm all kind of discombobulated because I'm just trying to figure out what was going on. But anyway, do appreciate Lars, who let me know that we were having problems with the feed, but things do appear to be working better right now. Anyway, let's go ahead and we're going to go right on into the show. And you probably didn't hear a thing that I said earlier, but wanted to start off talking about what's going on there in Davos. That's right, primarily want to focus on the fact that, well, President Trump has cut a deal when it comes to Greenland. Now, I know that when we first started talking about this thing, I had no idea what the president was trying to figure out. I had no idea what he was trying to do. But it appears that, according to him, or at least according to reports, or according to him, it appears that they've worked out a deal where they're going to be able to get what it was that they originally wanted when it came to Greenland.
Has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand.
Greenland, a big topic in Davos. Joining us now from Davos, Switzerland, is NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Mr. Secretary General, thanks. Welcome back to Special Report. You know, the president had his meeting.
Thank you for having me back on the show.
Sure, he had his meeting with you, the bilat meeting, and he came out of there and said, we have formed a framework of a deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the broader Arctic. What does that framework look like, sir?
Yes, but what we basically discussed, how can we implement the president's vision on protecting, yes, Greenland, but of course it is not only Greenland, it is the whole Arctic. And as you know, there are 8 countries in the Arctic, Russia, which obviously is not in NATO, and 7 other countries, including the United States and Canada, but also 5 countries in Europe who are in that Arctic region. How can we collectively make sure that we defend that Arctic region, therefore implementing his vision of that necessity? And he's totally right there, because we know that the region is opening up more and more. The sea lanes are opening up more and more for the Russians and the Chinese and other adversaries to be active there, which is potentially a threat.
You know, getting from point A to point B, though, seems like it may be a challenge. I did get a statement just before this interview from the Danish foreign minister. He said this: the day is ending on a better note than it began. We welcome that President Trump has ruled out taking Greenland by force and paused the trade war with Europe. Now let's sit down and find out how we can address the American security concerns in the Arctic while respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. I think it's the red lines.
So the interesting thing about all this is that President Trump never said that he was going to use force to try and take Greenland. Literally what happened is, and what I appreciate about this is that they said that the president ruled out. And the only thing that he has ever said that ever was before was he refused to rule it out. Now, he didn't bring it up. The media brought it up. The left-wing Democrats brought it up. The use of violence. I mean, would I have liked for him to have said something earlier and just went in and said, yeah, no, we're not going to use force, but I'm glad we're not. But here's the thing, and this is what it comes down to. It says here, for example, after President Trump, this is by the way from Fox News, after President Donald Trump announced the new Greenland framework had been agreed upon with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, the NATO chief told Fox News special report with Brett Baer, the U.S. forcibly taking control of Greenland from Denmark was not discussed during meetings between him and Trump in Switzerland during the World Economic Forum. Quote, that issue did not come up anymore in my conversations with Mr. President. He's much focused on what we need to do to make sure that the huge Arctic region where change is taking place at the moment, where the Chinese and the Russians are more and more active, how can we protect that? Rutte said when pressed on the details of the reported framework that has been agreed upon. And that's the thing. No one talked about it. And by the way, President Trump, even in this meeting, did not talk with them about it because it's not something that he is pushing. But ultimately, here's the deal. And this is what he was going for. The president recognized that China and Russia are much more active. And in case you did not know, China and Russia are geopolitical enemies of the United States. All right, they would love to see the United States. Russia wants to replace us as the military power, and China wants to replace us as an economic power. But both of them want to see the United States, want to see the West in general, but the United States specifically go down. And now that's not going to happen in this particular case. It's not going to happen. Well, what they're trying to do here is, once again, you have to forgive me. My phone is going off on me here. But what is taking place here in this particular situation is they're getting more and more active. Greenland is basically it's an island that's right off the coast of North America, meaning Canada and the United States are at risk if China were to get a foothold there or if Russia were to get a foothold there. And what President Trump wanted to make sure happened was NATO, of which we are a member, to make sure that they did their responsibility, which was get active, get involved, get engaged, and make sure that nothing of that kind actually happened, right? To make sure that we were protected. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with them standing up and making sure that that happens. Anyway, so good things. We're getting what we wanted. It turns out that it might actually be both minerals, which means there'll probably be some mining that we will have access to. And there are tons of rare earth minerals that we need for many, 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 many things here in the United States, as well as the ability to have some military presence there. Now, this framework is not very much different than a deal that we had decades ago. I think post World War II, we had a similar deal, and over time just kind of pulled out. Well, now that, so why are we going back in? If we had a deal and we were there, why do we need to go back in? Well, as I stated before, Russia and China are much more active there in that region, and China especially they're making too much hullabaloo, and I just think that folks are in a position where they feel like we need to make sure that we let them know that we're paying attention and that the rest of Europe pays attention, because we look out for them. They need to make sure that they're also looking out for us. Now, that's not all that was going on in Davos. Also, what was taking place was at the World Economic Forum was, let's just say Gavin Newsom went there because he wanted to represent the interests of the United States. Except there's one problem. He has no official position when it comes to our international affairs and the United States. But he is a guy who wants to run for president. And so he's trying to make himself look presidential, except there's only one problem. You can't look presidential when there's already a president. You can't try and be in the same place. And so Gavin Newsom went there and by the way, supposedly was invited to speak, but according to the folks over at the California Globe, Gavin Newsom whimpers, "White House blocked me from speaking at World Economic Forum." No one in Davos knows who third-rate Governor Newsom is and why he is frolicking around Switzerland. California Governor Gavin Newsom was denied entry into the USA House in Davos following pressure from the White House. From the White House, a spokesman said, quote, "It looks like the Donald wields more influence with the World Economic Forum than Gavin Newsom," a Globe reader commented. The governor's office said he was blocked by the Trump administration from speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on Wednesday. Newsom was planning on speaking at an event at the annual gathering of world leaders. Newsom's office staff said they were told that a venue level decision was made to not include an elected U.S. official in the programming. The Los Angeles Times reported a fireside chat was scheduled for Wednesday evening in Davos with media outlet Fortune. Newsom commented on X Wednesday saying, "How weak and pathetic do you have to be to be this scared of a fireside chat?" White House spokesperson Anna Kelly told Newsweek on Wednesday, "No one in Davos knows who third-rate Governor Newsom is or why he's frolicking around Switzerland instead of fixing the many problems he created in California." Fortune magazine told Newsweek that in an emailed statement on Wednesday, quote, Governor Newsom had been invited to participate in a Fortune conversation at USA House in Davos. Subsequently, USA House determined it would not be able to accommodate the governor's participation and communicated the decision to Fortune. Yeah, because you're not there representing anyone, dude. No one gives a rip about you, Gavin. Look, let's just put it, this is how bad it is. You literally have chased billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars out of the state of California, trillions of I honestly believe, in terms of economic opportunity in order to quote unquote fight climate change. And guess what? CO2 levels are worse now than ever before. So you don't know anything about economics, right? You don't know anything about the environment. And now you want to go to the World Economic Forum and try and lecture someone on, or basically not try and lecture, go there to badmouth the United States, in particular badmouth the President of the United States. And you think he's just going to sit around and let you do it? Yeah, you're kind of dumb. Of course, that's also the reason why, especially, by the way, after he goes out and he says that they, what is it? He said something about their knee pads. What was the joke that he had to say? Oh, that's right. Here it is.
Do you have a message for Europeans who are concerned about the messages from the White House around Greenland this week?
Yeah, it's time to fuck up. It's time to get serious and stop being complicit. It's time to stand tall and firm, have a backbone. I've seen this in the United States, the supine Congress playing both sides, say one thing on a text or a tweet and another publicly.
Should you respond with
principle.
tariffs?
It's time to stand tall and strong.
Does that mean responding with
It's time to
tariffs?
stand united. You make that determination. I don't make that determination.
But when you say standing tall, what do you mean?
Just, I can't take this complicity. People rolling over. I should have brought a bunch of knee pads for all the world leaders. I mean, handing out crowns and this is pathetic. Nobel Prize.
Yeah, that's his perspective, right? And then you don't think that that the President of the United States is going to say, yeah, no, we don't want the rest of y'all out here doing that. We don't want you representing or pretending to represent the United States. Yeah, so he got his invitation revoked, and deservedly so. Now, the next story here, you remember yesterday I had on Harmeet Dillon, or at least I shared with you a segment from an interview that I did with Harmeet Dillon. I did the interview on 2A News, the other program that I host. And by the way, go to 2anews.us if you want to see the entire interview, or just go to our YouTube channel. The 2A News YouTube channel. But anyway, so today I had a chance to sit down with one of the chief critics of the work that is taking place right now in DOJ and their new Office of Civil Rights, in particular, the office within the office that has to do with firearms. And I had a chance to sit down with Cody Wisniewski of the Firearms Policy Coalition, and he shared with me some of his concerns about some of the things that are taking place there, the DOJ, not just the rulemaking, because she talked about the importance of trying to change the rulemaking process, of trying to subvert that so that they can then turn around and actually make rules that actually work, or at least undo some of the rules that are there. But Cody brought up some interesting things that I believe I believe he might have something there. Check it out. Came to dealing with the rulemaking process, but there are some other things that probably need to be taken a look at. And you and I, just before we came on, were talking about some of the concerns that you have about things that this Second Amendment agency or department is supposed to be doing that they could be doing.
Yeah, it's really concerning. So what we've seen is kind of a clear trend where the administration, Department of Justice, is really willing to engage on state-level gun control, right? So they have these active lawsuits against, the city of LA. They have other lawsuits. They're filing amicus briefs in our cases in support of us when we're suing the states or, cities. But they're also continuing to defend all of their federal-level gun control laws. So, in our NFA lawsuit, right, they're continuing to push back. They're continuing to try to defend the NFA. They're saying that even with the $0 tax, that you still have to register your firearm because they think that they still need to be able to do that, which is insane. In this George Peterson case, they're continuing to prosecute him merely for possessing an unregistered suppressor. That's it. That is the charge. And they're going to try and put him in jail. I mean, we're not talking about, a pre-enforcement challenge where nobody's at risk of not going home tomorrow. George Peterson will go to jail if the federal government continues to prosecute him and is victorious. And they're keeping up that fight. We've also seen it in our Reese case, which is the 18 to 20 handgun purchase case coming out of Louisiana. There, we won. We were victorious at the Fifth Circuit. The case went back down for the district court to enter relief for us. And now the federal government is fighting us on how broad the relief is. They're trying to limit. This was the case that made the headlines because the feds wanted our membership lists. And we said, absolutely not. So we have fixed that problem. But they're still fighting us. They want our victory to be as narrow as possible, which really means that they want to continue to enforce the 18 to 20 purchase ban, which the Fifth Circuit has said is unconstitutional, against as many people as they possibly can, which is just insane. So it's great that they're doing these things on the state level. That's awesome, but I just don't understand why we're still having these fights at this federal gun control level. They're DOJ attorneys. They have, they answer to all of these people that are saying that they're the most pro-gun administration. Like, let's do it. Let's get some of this federal stuff fixed. Let's stop defending these federal gun control laws.
What do you think it's going to take to get them? And I think that's the point right there. Is like, and he and I talked a little bit more about this. Now, understand that to a certain degree, if something has been, if a law has been passed and signed into law, right, and the courts have not ruled it unconstitutional, or more importantly, if they have ruled that it is constitutional, as an attorney general, you have an obligation to defend it. But we've also seen that plenty of attorneys general don't go all the way. I mean, in other words, if something is ruled unconstitutional, they don't have to appeal it. You're not obligated to appeal it. That's what happened with the whole marriage thing in California, when the governor and the attorney general of California opted not to continue to defend Proposition 8 in court. They're like, yep, it's been ruled by a court unconstitutional, and therefore that's why they didn't bother to continue to defend it. Right? Why are we defending it? There's no need for us to continue to defend it because, well, we did our job. The courts have ruled. Once the court rules, that's it. Or there were the other instances that Cody brought up there. Anyway, I will continue to say that I think the biggest issue here is that you have nobody who is a known figure within the gun rights community that's a part of this process. So in many cases, they know the cases, they know the issues, they know they know where all the bodies are buried. And they can, if you're really interested in defending the Constitution and the right to keep and bear arms, these are the people that you need to talk to, because they're seeing the implementation on the ground. And as much as I like Harmeet and I respect Harmeet, and she's doing a lot to fight for civil rights, in particular for freedom of speech, for religious liberty, but she's not fighting the day-to-day fight when it comes to the Second Amendment, in a lot of these instances. And so I do think that in many cases you're dealing with people who are currently in the Department of Justice who are not gun people, right? They may be good lawyers, but they're not gun people. They're not part of the Second Amendment fight. And so, their positions on some of these things are probably a little tenuous. It's probably a little weak-kneed. What did she call them? She called them a little prissy. That's what Harmeet called them. She said some of them are a little prissy, right? Anyway. So I don't know. I think there's definitely room there for discussion. I think that there's nothing wrong with being publicly critical, and I think because sometimes the only time in which, in particular, this White House, any White House will hear you is when you are publicly critical. But the real good thing is, and maybe this is where the whole him being willing to kick every barking dog actually is an asset. Because if you're the barking dog, then he's going to come and he's got to address you. And in this particular case, if you want to call yourself the most pro-gun administration, well then, when someone says, "Hey, stop defending gun control," there's nothing really that they can say. Anyway, so. Good job, sir. Very much. Good job, Mr. Wisniewski. Very much appreciate what you had to say. Now, moving right along, the next thing that we have going on here has to do with The folks that were protesting over there in Minnesota, the ones who decided to go into a church and interrupt the service, well, several of them now have been taken into custody. That's right. Here we go. So this being, no, that's the wrong one. Anyway, so several of them have been taken into custody. But the interesting thing is that even though they have been taken into custody, they've absolutely positively refused to go after Don Lemon. That's right. Don Lemon is not going to be charged. So they arrested 2 people. They just decided not to arrest the others. This here being reported over at, who is it, CBS News. A Minnesota federal magistrate judge refused to sign a complaint charging independent journalist Don Lemon in connection with a protest inside a church in St. Paul on Sunday. Multiple sources familiar with the proceedings told CBS News. The Attorney General is enraged at the magistrate's decision, said a source familiar with the matter. Attorney General Pam Bondi has been in Minnesota for 2 days as the Justice Department has sought to surge prosecutorial and law enforcement resources there. A different source stressed that the process is not over, and the Justice Department could find other avenues to charge Lemon. On Thursday morning, Bondi announced 2 arrests connected to the church protest. Chantel Louisa Allen, who serves on the St. Paul School Board, and Lakima Levy Armstrong. Levy Armstrong. Bondi alleged that Armstrong was involved in organizing the protest. A source familiar with the matter confirmed that the magistrate approved charges against Allen and Armstrong. So some of the folks are arrested. A lot of the folks aren't, or at least one of the folks isn't. I'm guessing it's because he is in the media, and they're probably saying, "Oh, well, he was there, kind of reporting on it, and therefore he doesn't want to pick a fight with the media." That's what's going on with this particular judge. But clearly, he was participating in the protest, and you would think that they would, well, I don't know, allow them for the federal government to enforce the law. I do not know if this judge is a Democrat appointee or a Republican appointee. I'm going to guess that he's a Democrat appointee. But then again, I don't know. Who knows? He could be a Republican. Anyway, so no justice for Don Lemon, but at least some of the folks are being charged. And keep in mind, they clearly violated a law that was put in place in order initially, it was to keep the KKK from interrupting church services. In this particular case, it was a different group of racists. Anyway. All right, folks, well, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your Hog holster today. All right, all of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by the folks over at the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. It says here, first one, Minnesota arrests churchgoers for interrupting protests. Yeah, that's pretty much about what it looks like, doesn't it? It says Trump announces new round of tariffs on everyone who didn't laugh at his jokes in Davos. Yeah, I could see him doing that. I could definitely see him doing that. And then finally, Pam Bondi says she has finally figured out what DOJ stands for. Oops. Fun stuff. All right, folks. Well, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one quick shout out to our sponsors. We got the folks over at Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. We've got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out today at cragop.org. We've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then we've got the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, well, this is going to be it. This is going to be the last show from SHOT Show 2025. Our last one, at least for now, from the Imperium Strategic Group mobile studios. And I will talk to y'all. Hopefully Mike will be back, and we'll be able to check in with y'all on Monday. Interviews, we'll be playing another interview tomorrow over at 2A News, here from SHOT, and we'll be running those interviews all next week. In any case, that's going to be it for today. That's going to be it for this week. We will talk to y'all on Monday. Peace out.